day, folks. Here we are back. Tom and Gino, Lovell versus Jackson, Democrat versus God only knows what. And here we are. It's July the 19th, 27th. I can't believe it. Our next show will actually be in August. But here we have,
19th, yeah.
Things being as strange as they are in Washington these days, and things going along apace the way they are. We have a question here from top management to start off the day. Do you believe that Presidente Trump was until recently unaware of his son's meeting with a Russian lawyer in June of 2016? That was the case where they originally had 4 people in the room. Now they've got 8.
I think it's plausible. Nothing. I mean, they were open to getting some dirt on Hillary, as the email that Donald Trump Jr. released said that he was the source of it was the Russian government, and he said, "I love it. Let's listen." So, that's the first evidence of collusion that there has been between Russia and the Trump administration, the Trump campaign at the time. Nothing came of it, as far as we know. There's no evidence that he had anything that wasn't already available from other sources, or they had anything at all. So it's plausible that it didn't go up the ladder to the candidate himself, because nothing seems to have come of it. So yeah, do I believe him? I mean, I don't think Trump is he's as prone to lying as any other politician is, and I don't think he's a completely honest. He's not an Abe Lincoln when it comes, or a George Washington, but it's it's possible that he didn't know anything about it.
I think it's even possible that Amelia Earhart is still alive, living in a convent in Australia.
So that's
this
a no.
man, yeah. I think, of course, he knew what his son was doing. He's got the top 3 people in his candidacy in a room answering an email from Russia saying, "We got the goods," basically, on Hillary, and we'd like to show up and talk to you. The first time he says anything about it, he says, "Yeah, it was me, Monafoot, and Jared, and this lawyer from Russia." "Oh, that's all? Yeah, just 4 people." Over the next few days, it turns into 8 people. He even lied to Hannity on national television that "you've got the whole story. This is the whole story. THS, the whole TWS, the whole story is here, and you've got it right on national television." Hannity finds out the next day. He lied right through his teeth to him.
What did he lie about?
He lied about the people in the meeting, what it was about, that there was no connection to blah, 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 whatever.
Was that before you released the email or after?
Before, I think he changed to the second email. That's kind of confusing. He talked about the email as though it was. Then
it must be before you actually released it.
At first, Trump Jr. said it was about the adoption problem, which we know that the Trump administration is entirely involved in the loss of children in the world, and the idea that adoption should go along a pace. But they really didn't.
So that was only part of it.
Right. It was the answer when he said, "Oh, I love it. Bring it on. I love it." Now there's 8 people in the room, an interpreter. I thought that the Russian attorney could actually speak English, but I'm not so sure she can now. But anyway, that interpreter. Now they get some other guy pops up who's in a picture with Trump back in 2013 in Russia.
A picture? Oh, a photograph.
A photograph. They were together, kind of. And the thing is, of course, he knew.
He was the fat guy that wore funny hats?
No, that's another guy. This is another guy who was a promoter of the kids' theater, rock and roll. Son or something. But anyway, they're all Russians. They're all probably communists, and they're all this Moscow gang of mafia types. But anyway, of course, Trump had to know. I mean,
why do you say that?
Because he's such a control freak. He controls everything. He controls.
You think
everything.
He's a micromanager?
Oh, terrible, man. He's down to the point. I don't think they ever put.
See, I don't see him that way. I almost wish he were.
I know. I think he's a micromanager with his people, especially with his son and his son-in-law. In the first place, somebody should have warned this kid. Monafoot, I blame him most in that, because he knew he was the campaign leader.
Right.
He knows you don't.
It was dumb. have
dumb.
done
It's
that.
dumb. You know,
Yeah.
I admit the son is. Now he says, "Oh, my young son is." He's almost 40 years old. This
So
guy.
shortly after that, he got fired, right? Manafort.
Manafort got fired, but right after that, the previous day, I think what happened is Trump reacted to the initial emails that came in about having the goods or some goods on Clinton, because the night before, or the couple of nights before they met with those people, Trump went on saying, I'm going to have big news I'm going to have a major speech in the next few days about Hillary Clinton and all this and that. And I think maybe it wasn't the information they wanted. It wasn't as much information as they
So he
wanted.
didn't follow through with the speech?
He never followed through with the speech. So I do believe that he knew about this meeting. He would have to. I mean, the son had to say, hey, Dad, they're only on the next floor. It's not like he has to go to China. All these people fly in from Moscow. From Moscow.
So this story has
Unbelievable.
been hanging fire, especially for well,
A month, maybe 3 weeks.
that Trump colluded with the Russians to defeat Hillary since he got elected November 8th,
Right.
November 9th.
Right.
And it has, so that's been like 7 months. No, 8 months
Since the,
since the election.
actually it's a year
That's when
since
it came out.
the meeting.
Right, but it wasn't so much,
Right.
the story wasn't pounded like it is now
Right.
until Trump won.
Yeah, well, I don't think anything
Obama
was
reported on collusion, not collusion, but Russian interference with the election. Intelligence reports came out.
Right.
They were trying. They do all the time.
I know.
That wasn't really a big story. Became a big story. It became somewhat of a story when Trump was asked by somebody in a debate, if you lose, will you accept the results of the election? And he hemmed and hawed, and he said, well, I'm not sure. If I win, I'll accept them, but if I lose, he answered something like that. And that became sort of a story, and Obama reacted to it. I remember he did a Rose Garden press conference, and he said, I just happened to watch it yesterday, and he said, for Trump to even claim that there could be any rigging of this election is ridiculous, because it's so decentralized. The states
Right.
run
You
it,
would
the
think that.
localities
You would
run it,
think
and so
that, yeah.
he was poo-pooing this, and ridiculous,
Yeah.
And if he wins, he should accept the result of the election, because if he wins, I'll accept him. I'll invite him into the White House, and
Yeah.
and there'll be a transition of power, and Hillary will make a gracious acceptance speech and so forth. And well, she didn't do that until a couple of days later, but anyway.
she did.
So he said then all of a sudden Trump wins, and all of a sudden. Oh my goodness! There's collusion and there's sanctions against Russia. This is while he's a lame duck, and now Hillary's lost, and so that's when this became a story. The media got right on it, and they've been pounding it ever since. This is the first actual evidence that there's anything to this story, and it's pretty thin evidence. It's
Well, right at the
evidence,
moment,
I'll
yeah,
acknowledge.
but you're forgetting, and I can understand, because there's been so many twists and turns in this saga since day one. Back in the summer of 2016, I don't know the exact dates involved, President Obama went to Congress, to the heads of the committees, gave them a bunch of information about what the Russians were doing in the United States to get involved in the election.
Do you remember what they were actually doing?
Whatever they found, whatever the
That's why I'm asking.
CIA and these other groups found that they were doing, and they were meeting with certain Trump people. They had people that showed up in information they were tracing the Russians on. There were people that worked with Trump and different things that showed up in these things. They didn't want to release their names because they're American citizens, and all that kind of stuff was going on. So Obama went to
Well,
Congress.
this is part of the Foreign Intelligence
Yes.
Surveillance Act stuff?
Yes. So Obama went to Congress, and they briefed Trump on the same information at the time.
Okay.
So that was all done in front of Congress in a closed-door session.
Yeah.
What happened then was Trump began saying things like the election's rigged. If you remember, this election, if this election's
do.
rigged, blah blah blah
Yeah.
blah. He was doing it out on the trail. Like, what are you talking
remember,
about?
yeah.
No, that was it was rigged that he was going to lose.
Yeah,
Well,
that was
now
the
when he
implication.
wins, he's complaining because he didn't win. No one thinks he won by enough, or whatever the heck it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like this strange world, like Alice in Wonderland going on. And I agree. You can't remember. I saw some things put together of the dates the other night. Somebody on TV was doing it. And my God, when you see what happened and the dates involved, it looks like just stepping down these lines into treason.
Okay, so what you're suggesting is that Trump said, yeah, it's rigged, and not without saying it's rigged by Russians. I think
No, he just said it's rigged.
it's rigged.
It's got to be
period.
rigged. It's
I
basically
think he
rigged.
was suggesting that it was rigged by illegal alien voters
Could have
and
been
stuff like
anything,
that. That's how
exactly.
I took it when he was saying
And
it.
who
But-
knows? I don't know what he was
Okay,
talking.
so it's rigged, but then when he wins, it's not rigged.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying, right?
And I don't think, the
And
Democrats haven't
and
really
then
said it
on
was
the other
rigged.
side, Obama is saying that it's not rigged.
Right.
And then all of a sudden Trump wins and it is rigged.
I don't think Obama ever said it was rigged. What he did say.
Are you kidding?
Wait a
Of course
minute.
he did.
After it happened, okay, he had another meeting with Congress. I think it seems to me it's all rolling in together. But he was pretty darn sure, because of the information they got from the NIA and all that kind of stuff, that this stuff was going on.
You mean FISA?
Right. This stuff was going on because
Okay.
then at some point in January, Trump came out with this balderdash statement that he was being wiretapped at the White House. He wasn't being wiretapped at the
At
White
the
House.
Trump Tower.
Yes, at
That's
Trump
what he
Tower. I think what he was talking about was news had come down to him that they had information between Russia and his people talking. I think that's what happened. I don't know for sure, because why else would he be saying I'm being wiretapped? He got information that they were picking up sounds from people that aren't supposed to be reported. They're American citizens, but if they're intrinsically involved in a deal with somebody like these Russian spies, and that information, then they can use those names because you're doing something dishonest.
Illegal.
Yeah, I think all
Not
you
just,
can
not
do.
just dishonest, illegal.
All we can do now as American citizens, I think, is wait for Mueller. I know that Congress, whatever they do, that's a lot of political stuff. But Mueller is hiring these attorneys. They put an attorney
Mostly
on.
Democrats.
And, well, I don't care. Well, no, Mueller's a Republican.
No, but the people he's hiring.
This guy they just put
the
on.
big-time Democrat donors.
Well, yeah, but it goes both ways. So what you're saying is they're now going to do all this thing because they're Democrats.
I
They're
don't
going to
know.
lie.
I'm just pointing it out.
Well,
Maybe they're
that's,
honest Democrats. That's possible.
I think what's going to happen, and I really do. I think, look at Comey was a Republican. I don't hear people saying, "Oh, it's because he was a Republican." I think he's basically an honest man, and I think Mueller is too. And I think the guy this Rosenstein that brought in the he's a Republican too. I mean, you can't make those distinctions. I don't think in a time. I think these guys are patriotic. They could make millions of dollars out in the legal profession, okay, and they instead choose to work for the United States government.
What I hope to see come out of this investigation is when you mentioned the FISA, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance
That's
Act.
courts, yeah.
That has been scrutinized in public hearings by the congressional committees investigating. And I remember Comey sitting there along with another guy,
very
an
confusing.
admiral who is now with intelligence agency.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember his name.
I know who you
And
mean.
the two of them were questioned about this FISA stuff
Yeah.
and said, oh, well, we have extremely strict we do get briefed on Americans who are picked up in this surveillance.
Right.
But there are ironclad rules that we would never violate about disclosing what Americans they are, because they're not the targets. The targets are the foreigners that we're surveilling.
Exactly.
And so, and they had a word for it. I forget the name of the word
I know what
they
you're talking
used,
about, yeah.
for disclosing these names. Okay.
They call them shadowed or something. They have to. There's something
There's
they
a
have to
word
do.
that'll come to me
Yeah.
at some point, and I'll say it. But but then what they're known to only people a need to know basis on the intelligence community.
Right.
But then there are 16 different intelligence agencies.
Yeah.
It used to be that only the agency that actually did the surveillance would know these American names, right? And then only a limited number of people within
Now
that
they share
one
them.
agency. Obama, as a lame duck, right after Trump won, now that's available to everyone in all 16 intelligence agencies. He did that by
Yeah,
executive
but that's
order.
under the NSA. They all, in other words, they're all under that rubric, right? The NSA.
I'm not sure
they
if
are.
there's an umbrella
Yeah, there is an
organization,
umbrella.
but it went from one agency to 16
17, yeah,
agencies,
whatever.
and it went to thousands of people from only a handful at first, close to thousands. Now, why did he do that?
Because
As a
he
lame
knew
duck.
something they didn't know. He knew something that Trump didn't know.
I don't know this,
Yeah.
but to me, I think it's highly questionable. He did it because he wanted it to be leaked.
Maybe.
And what have we had? Because it's much more likely to be leaked from thousands of people than it is from a handful of people.
I think we, you know, I
And
think
so
we
it
need,
was leaked, and then that's what we've had ever since, is leaks from unnamed intelligence sources to the Washington Post, to the New York Times.
Yeah.
And that has been driving political coverage of the Trump administration ever since.
I
And
think-
it has crippled the White House.
You know, if you look at it honestly, I mean, I'm not saying honestly. If you look at the White House honestly, and I've tried to, they got a couple of people there that are pretty good. Mad Dog and that other guy. I mean, they're great people, good Americans. But I think for the most part, he's surrounded himself with a bunch of amateurs. I mean, his son-in-law, daughter. I mean,
So not his cabinet, but
yeah,
the
just
people within
and-
his
and-
staff.
Yeah, he's surrounded, and that's where the action is really. That's where they make the decisions that then the other people run with. So you get Bannon here, and you get somebody else here, and then Miller here, and all these different people, all with sort of like their own road they're trying to plow. And what's happening is because he surrounded himself with this kind of a staff, there's infighting, there's Spicer and that Huckabee there, and all there's a lot of infighting going on, and nothing's going to get accomplished that way. I mean, he goes overseas, he sits down with Putin, with a Russian translator, and the American public knows nothing about what he's doing, but the Russians obviously do. The Russians know what he's saying. You know what I'm saying? All this kind of stuff is going. He's making all these sophomoric mistakes that you wouldn't make. I wouldn't make. I'm not a politician. I've been in politics a little bit, but you know there's certain things you don't do. And he just doesn't have that muzzle on him. There's no muzzle there.
No, there isn't. I agree with that.
And he come out when
He's
when
his
he
own
was
worst enemy.
and he came out
Yeah.
against all of these agencies.
He came
said-
out against
way
what?
back when he came out against all the U.S. intelligence
While he was
agencies. When he was
president-elect.
Yes.
Yeah,
And then
he
he
did.
come out and said the FBI was all Nazis. Well, you know, it
He
doesn't
didn't say
play
exactly
well.
that, but he did
He
say.
did. He called them Nazis. He called the CIA Nazis. That's true. But the point is, that doesn't win you any friends. If you did that, you can see what you don't get published sometimes because you believe a certain way, and there's a lot of people that support that way, and you can't even get it published. This guy is like, he's just a fountain of stupidity. And you can't disagree with that.
I don't disagree with
he
that.
has said some
he
things
has done
that
some
defy-
very stupid
Oh, my
things,
God.
and he still is doing these
He
very
won't
stupid
quit.
things. So his staff is not controlling him clearly, because I think his staff isn't more intelligent about political matters, the do's and don'ts, than he is. And so he's doing it in spite of what's got to be their advice. I would hope so anyway. And yeah, the infighting that's going on, I think,
horrible.
is there. And so I think the media is out to get him. And I know our producer doesn't want me to talk about this, but I think it is the central dynamic in this story, which is being pounded to us over and over and over and over again. It is because it's working. They have handcuffed the Trump administration in implementing its programs, like Obamacare repeal and replace, like tax cuts. He's doing his things by executive order. He doesn't have to have congressional approval. He's pretty much done all those things already. Okay, so there won't be any more of them. But the actual legislation, which is his
None.
package, his administration, implementing his political promises and so forth, he's handcuffed. And
Is he handcuffed or the Republicans handcuffed? Are the Republicans?
I think the Republicans are not all behind him
Of
because
course not.
the Republicans are divided and they're not whipped into compliance like the Democrats were. I mean, Obama came into a very similar situation in his first 2
Right,
years.
he had a few people
He had
more,
the
6
he had the
people
House,
run the
he had the
Senate.
Senate,
Right.
he had the White House. But he worked at it. He gave speech after speech. He traveled around the country pounding Obamacare. And
they had a ton of
every
meetings.
single senator voted for it. Every single Democrat senator voted for it. And every single Democrat member of the House voted for it. They talk about iron discipline, about a program. They did it. Okay,
Keep in
it
mind,
was very close too, because you remember Scott Brown, and he was elected in a
yeah,
special
yeah,
election.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
very,
yeah.
very close. And even some Democrats, he had to win them over by the so-called Louisiana Purchase. The Nebraska Senator Nelson they had to make these deals.
They
But
were
that's
doing the
politics.
same. Yeah, but
That's
they've been
how it
doing the
happens,
same thing
right?
for the last. Yeah, but
They did it. The
he's-
point is, they did it.
I know,
right?
but
Now, has Trump done that in this repeal? He's not.
he's already. But
he's
you know why?
clearly not-
They can't trust him. Every time he turns a corner, he doubles back on something.
That's true too,
when
but
when
on
the-
this particular issue, I mean,
Well-
he promised he'd repeal and replace Obamacare.
Yeah.
He promised. Day one, I'm going to do that first. Well, he's clear, he hasn't been able to do it. Why? Because he's not a leader. He's not.
Wait a minute, let
He's
me-
not whipping those Republicans into place, and neither is McConnell, and neither was Ryan.
McConnell
They're not
had
doing
a
it.
plan. Okay, McConnell got 14 or 15 Republican leaders in the Senate, had them all in a room for a couple of weeks at meetings and this and that, trying to take that bill that the Republican House had sent up to be reviewed. It was accepted by the Republican House, accepted by the President, moved on to the Senate. The Senate bill was a little bit more liberal, I think, in some ways than the House bill was. It gets up to the House, and Trump, after having
You
his
mean
little
to the Senate?
yeah, in the Senate,
Senate vote.
after Trump has his little beer party in front of the Rose Garden with the Republicans when they got that bill passed, finally, the first issue,
In the House.
he's at a meeting and he says, this is after the Senate was working on it and they come up with a bill. He says, this is too mean. He's saying the bill is mean to the Senate Majority Leader. He said, that's
What
a
do you
very
mean to whom?
mean to the people that are on Obamacare.
Oh,
He says this to his own Republicans in the Senate before they even get a chance to vote. Well, now, if you're sitting there and you're not going to vote,
that's dumb. That's
Dumb?
a good example of dumb.
he's got to be as dumb as a box of rocks. Now, he's either not serious, he's not a serious person, maybe he's just been in business so long, making money, renting rooms. Maybe that's the best thing he enjoys. That's what he really enjoys. But whatever he's doing ain't working for the United States of America. Now, you would think he might even be on the other side. I mean,
Might what?
be on the other side.
What do you mean?
He might be fostering a plan to actually work on Obamacare. He did say that a long time ago. One of the things he said while he was running in front of one of his groups, he said, I will not cut Medicare, I will not cut Medicaid, and I will improve the Obamacare. He did say that. I'm not making it up.
I think
Now,
he did, yes.
He did. So
Right.
here he is. Now you're president. Now you got a House and a Senate. You get a chance to do whatever you want to do to Obamacare. Maybe he doesn't want it to be called Obamacare. Whatever the hell it is, he defeats his own bill.
He did. Okay, so let me
So how do
comment
you-
on what you just
yeah,
said.
go ahead.
You know, he will not cut Medicare, he will not cut Medicaid. Now, Medicare is free health care up to a point for seniors, like me and you.
Right.
Medicaid is free health care completely for the poor.
And
Those who
people that are
qualify as poor.
unhireable, they're not working, they're in nursing
The poor,
homes, Medicaid.
disabled, yes.
That's Medicaid. People in nursing
Yes.
homes, yeah.
Okay, everyone else pays.
Yeah. I think it's 40% of,
So we have a divided system already. We have a certain amount of government-administered health care,
yeah.
and then we have a certain amount of privately administered
Mm-hmm.
health care, and that privately administered health care is paying for the publicly administered health care to an extent.
Yes.
And the rest of it is paid for by our taxes.
Right.
It's unsustainable, what we have. The government-administered health care, Medicare and Medicaid both, are unsustainable. We're not funding them the way
Exactly.
they up to
That's
that
the
point.
key point right
It
there.
is a key point. And so they're going to collapse unless major adjustments are made. That is,
Absolutely.
raising the amount of taxes that we have to pay toward Medicare and the general taxes, the general fund, in order to fund Medicaid, because that's
Exactly.
out of the general fund. So no politician is willing to do this.
Nope.
And when Trump said, I won't cut that, and we're going to, it's impossible.
Impossible task.
You might do it for a year or two,
Exactly.
but it's dumb policy long term, which is what he should be planning for long term in the interest of the country, right? Any president should have to
Exactly.
do that. Paul Ryan used to sing this song, but all of a sudden he stopped, didn't he?
What's that all
When
about?
he was a House Budget Committee chairman and wasn't Speaker of the House, he used to drive this when Obama was president. He'd meet with him and he'd say,
Yeah.
"This is all," and he'd make the same argument I just
Yes.
made, and now he's shut up about it. What happened?
I don't know.
Is his principle? The
Weird.
circumstances have not changed. We're still facing this ominous collapse of all these systems that everybody depends on and claims to want. No politician is willing to incur the political heat it's going to take in order to say, actually, that's the case.
And one of the things,
Because they won't get reelected.
And it is quite true. I have to agree with that. And the thing is, there was a guy I've been watching lately, and he was very strong on dumping Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act. John Thune, I think his name is John Thune,
Yeah,
senator
North
from
Dakota
South
senator,
Dakota.
yeah.
South Dakota.
Okay.
Now, if you remember, he beat like a 4-term Democrat. I can't remember who it was.
He was the House Majority Leader.
Yeah, he was
What's his
Senate
name?
Majority
Yeah.
Leader.
I mean, yeah, Senate Majority
Can't
Leader.
remember his name. But anyway,
I'll think of it.
how he won the election. This is the amazing thing about this bull. Nobody wants to pay for this because, it's tax money. We can't, blah, blah, blah. So everybody's getting it. Sodrak Air Force Base in South Dakota is a B-52 base, one of the biggest bases in the country, or maybe in the world. They fly the B-52s out of that place, okay? He ran his election on, we will never close this air base. The other guy says, we got to look at this thing. The Democrats said, we got to look at this thing because, it's costing us so much money, and the planes were, at the time.
B-52s are older than you and me.
Yeah, they're 1955, I think, was their first year. So that's what, how many years is that, 70? So 70 years ago, they invented this plane. Now it was shot down in droves in Vietnam. I mean, the old useless little SAM rockets would hit them, and we lost a lot of kids in B-52s. But they want to keep it flying. So one guy who's a Democrat, a liberal Democrat, comes out against keeping them flying. The conservative Republican comes out to keep them flying. They're still flying. And Thune is still senator from South Dakota. This is the kind of stuff you're up against. Suppose you've got Hartford Insurance in, say, Connecticut. How strongly are you going to be against something that will take money out of their pocket? You can't do it.
There are many factors involved.
There's so
in this,
many
yeah.
factors. So
Yeah.
I think what we are, I got a question to ask you, because this just came up this week, and I was wondering. I watched Trump getting off of planes. Not very agile. If you watch him, he's grabbing on the handrail. He always looking down at the stairs. Looks kind of shaky, right? Now I see him in Italy at the time before last, what was it, the NATO conference or something. They were going to be going to Brussels, and he's in a golf cart, going up an alleyway in a golf cart with all these other leaders of the free world walking ahead of him. And then, anytime he goes to a golf course, he's in a golf cart. And there was some other place, where the heck was it? He was in a golf cart. It looked really weird. And somebody brought that up on television, and I said, Jesus, maybe there is something wrong with him. Maybe he doesn't do anything for his health. Not that he eats crap all the time. He's, Burger King.
So you think, you're suggesting
I
he's
think
got
there might
health
be something
problems?
wrong. I think he's got health problems.
I
And
don't
I
know.
think, did you ever see his doctor?
Did I ever see his doctor?
When he was on TV saying, he's the healthiest man I know.
No.
Somehow you got to get online and look up his doctor and then tell me if he might have a medical problem, because the doctor looked like he had medical problems.
The doctor had medical problems himself.
like
You
he
mean
was
like
a
Archie
nut.
Bunker's
He looked
doctor
like-
who comes in coughing and smoking?
He looked like a nut. But I was just wondering, that might be something, he could have mental problems. He could be.
Well, he's got character problems. I don't know about me. He may be.
Is that
I don't
related
know.
to your brain?
No, it's related to your personality. it's a he's. I've acknowledged this.
But
many
what are we
times.
gonna
I
do
don't
about
like
it?
the man personally, but anyway.
But anyway, that's
I
basically.
I want to mention one more factor that is involved
Go
here.
ahead.
You live. I mean, we probably watch some of the same television stations.
Yeah.
Right. So there's been a huge campaign on pressure on Susan Collins to vote against this bill. Have you seen the commercials?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Have you seen the Planned Parenthood commercials that are out? Because Planned Parenthood is tied
supported
to
that too, I
this
think.
Obamacare repeal. Along with
yes.
repealing Obamacare,
Right.
you're cutting no more federal funds for Planned Parenthood.
Right.
Okay, so we're seeing two things, and sometimes they overlap.
Right.
We're seeing all these stories about Planned Parenthood. You know, oh, they saved my life. It's such a wonderful outfit, and oh, please do not, don't go against it. We need Planned Parenthood. It's so wonderful. Never mentioning Planned Parenthood's primary function, which is abortion. Okay,
They don't say that.
perform. No, they don't. That's
No,
clearly.
they don't say that.
And also, Susan Collins, please, let's save this.
Right, I did
affordable
see
care.
that
Well, guess
commercial,
what?
yeah.
Susan Collins has always been pro-abortion. Okay,
Yeah.
She's one of the Republicans. That's a big issue in her, and she's up. She wants to run for governor of Maine as soon as
Oh, she
LePage's
does?
term is up. Oh yeah, she wants to be governor. Okay, so she's feathering that nest as well. So that's one of the reasons why this. She talked. It's going to really hurt seniors, and they'll be
juniors.
without. So we've seen those. We've
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
the commercials,
Uh-oh.
right?
We've got some more stuff coming in.
There's it.
This is hot off the presses. Can you get this on screen, Bill?
Oh, this is. Wait a minute. Is this the doctor?
This is his doctor.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. That's the nutbag, pardon the expression.
I say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I'm just going to let it speak for itself.
This guy.
Okay. Would you go to this? Would you trust this guy with your life?
I wouldn't have him
don't-
as a vet.
Holy
Now, he
shit.
wrote
He
a
hasn't
one-
got a cigarette in his hand. That's a. But,
And the woman that
boy.
was working with him in the office looked even worse than he did. And if you ever saw, folks, if you ever seen the movie with Peter Sellers when he dresses up
Yeah,
as
I
the
have.
dentist,
Yeah.
and he goes
does look
to
like-
pull Herbert Lom's teeth.
Well, that's classic.
This is just what he looked like. I mean,
Always. What's his name? Can you read it?
Harold Russenweister, MD.
I couldn't make it out. But maybe you could.
Ronald Grossenklemmer, or something like that. But anyway,
can't make
this
it
is
out.
this is what we got. And
Harold.
And this is what
Harold
I
K. something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Here's what I blame the Democrats for. Now, this fruitcake was out basically saying that Donald Trump was the healthiest man he ever saw in his life that would be president, okay?
Healthy as I am,
The
right?
Democrats made nothing of it. Can you imagine if that was Hillary Clinton's doctor? How many places would have
Yeah.
seen this? Huh?
I would use it.
Of course.
Right.
You'd be all over them like a cheap suit.
All right.
So, all right.
So
But
where was
anyway.
I? So
you were
abortion
talking
is a
about-
factor in this. Okay?
Yes.
And so they never mention abortion. All the wonderful other things, cancer screening. I was gonna have cervical
smears,
cancer. Yep.
mammograms.
Okay, so it turns out that 1 out of every 3 abortions done in the United States. Planned Parenthood is the nation's largest abortion.
But they
provider.
don't do it.
They absolutely do.
I thought they sent you to someone that
Oh
does
no, they do the abortions
Mm-hmm.
at Planned Parenthood clinics. They don't do mammograms. It would be a whole lot cheaper to have a machine to do mammograms
Yeah.
than it would be to have an operating room to do abortions. But they send out mammograms. They do breast exams. They'll feel around, and they'll do Pap smears. But that's not a hugely involved medical procedure,
No.
right? So, but that's how they are. So they do 327,000 abortions they did last year. That's 1/3 of all the ones done in the United States. Kermit Gosnell did some, and various other butchers like him did some all around, but Planned Parenthood does the most. They do only 2% of the cancer screenings for women. So what is the real business of Planned Parenthood? It's pretty clear
Yeah.
what
no,
their
it is.
business is. It's abortion. That is a huge dynamic, but you'll never hear the word even mentioned in anything about Susan Collins and please, Susan, save Planned Parenthood, that is a big, so all 3 women who came out, Republican senators, who came out and say no, they're not, yesterday, it was yesterday or the day before, we're not going to vote for
4
the
of them,
strict
right?
repeal.
All 4 of them.
Well, there were I only heard about 3: Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and then a newly elected one from West Virginia, Capito or something like that.
Yeah.
All of them are pro-abortion, and that was a factor in
So
this.
look at where
That's all I
yeah,
want to point out.
Look at where, as a percentage of population, they probably do more of them. West Virginia, Maine, and some, where was the other, Alaska?
Alaska.
They probably do more of them there than, I mean, as a
Planned
percentage.
Parenthood?
Yeah, as a percentage of population.
More than a third of them?
Yeah, because, you know, I mean, California, Nevada, I think they probably do a lot. That's why they have to support it. Again, the same thing. If somebody is feathering your nest, you can't run from them.
I was out walking in Portland with
No pun
my
intended, by the
grandson.
way.
I have a grandson who lives in Portland. So we were out I took him to the Historical Society, a few other things. And we were walking up Congress Street on a Friday morning, and there's demonstrations going on. He spotted the demonstrations before I did. I didn't realize it. You know, Planned Parenthood has a clinic right there.
Yeah.
And so on Friday morning, they do abortions. And so there were these people protesting.
They do them on Friday morning? That's
Yeah.
when they do them?
Yeah. And that's the morning they have protests. Now, I didn't know any of this until I walked by and my grandson says, what's this about? And then I'm looking, oh, it's Planned Parenthood. Okay, here's the people against it. They're the people demonstrating for it. And there's a cop there making sure nothing goes wrong.
Yeah, nobody
And
comes
he's
with
all
a
curious
bomb.
about it. And I said, and then he's asking me, what's happening here, Grampy? And
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
so he's only 10.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how do I handle this, right? So I said, well, I just told, there's pictures of aborted babies that one person had, and then the others are talking about all the wonderful things, the cancer screenings and so forth, not mentioning any abortion, you know, women's health. The usual is right there in microcosm, all the arguments you see for and against. And so we moved on, and I had to explain that we were heading for the Historical Society, and so I had to stop and say, well, here's what's going on, kid. I mean, they do abortions there. Well, what's that? I don't know. Okay, what's abortion? That's when a woman gets pregnant and she
doesn't want to keep
says
the baby.
she doesn't want to have a baby, so she has it taken out of her. I mean, kill it? They kill it? Yeah.
I think one
do.
other thing, see,
Okay, and so the kid was, they do? Oh my God. I said, but yeah, that is what they do, kid.
See, the other side of the equation, though, that I see, and I don't like anything about it anyway, but I can't decide for some woman, any woman that happens to, that they don't want to keep. What am I I'm not going to decide for them. But the people that are the strongest against it, the really conservative religious, even fight contraception by birth control and by contraceptives and pills. They even fight that. They fight IU-487, the morning after pill. They say that's even too close to prevent the reaching the egg. They won't allow any of it. Well, to my way of thinking, that paints you right into a corner. Because then when something happens because of it,
Paints who into a corner?
Paints the individual into the corner and the people that just
The
support.
individual who wants an abortion, you mean?
Yeah, and then the people that don't want anything. I'm not just saying now you're not pro-choice, but you may be pro something else prior to the person becoming pregnant. A lot of the people.
I wouldn't favor government banning birth control.
I know you wouldn't, but what I'm saying is there are those people in that nest of people that don't like abortion. They also don't like anything to do with birth control. And there are
some. I don't think that the Catholic Church teaches that abortion is a mortal sin, and that using birth control is also sinful.
Well, how can
but I don't know very many Catholics
sense.
who believe that.
Exactly.
In
But
other
why do
religions,
they
I
keep
doubt.
fostering that?
Why
do these outfits, these people, these groups keep fostering that kind of thing where they don't even want any kind of birth control or information?
I think it's a pretty small minority.
Well, I don't know, because they don't even want the information disbanded, not so much on abortion, but not even on birth control. They don't want the information sent to the public.
There was a time during our lifetimes, right, in the early 1960s, as late as that there were some states who did not it was illegal to sell birth
Contraception.
control devices,
Exactly.
and the pill came out in the early '60s. So once the pill became available, then
It kinda defeated
the
the
states pretty much repealed those laws.
Right.
Then it went to a federal case, Casey something, right? Something versus Casey, Connecticut versus Casey.
Oh, well,
In which case, the federal government, the Supreme Court ruled that they come up with this idea of privacy, that
Right,
there was a constitutional right to privacy, and they
That was
applied
Bork's.
it to.
that's why Bork never became a Supreme Court judge.
So
That was
Okay,
the case. That he was on
possible.
the other side of it.
okay, so
He was on the right of the state.
yeah,
to
then
prevent
abortion
that.
came. That was in there about 63, 64, somewhere in there.
65, yeah.
Only 9 years
Goswald.
later. 9 years
Goswald.
later, you had Roe v. Wade.
That was Goswald versus the state of
Okay,
Connecticut.
all right. The next.
Griswold, I'm sorry.
So it was only 9 years later that you had a similar Supreme Court case saying
Right.
there's a constitutional right to abortion now.
Penumbra of
And
rights.
it's been nothing but controversy ever since.
But yet, you know something, with the Republican House, the Republican president, probably more conservative court than moderate or liberal.
Today?
Yeah, well, somewhat. Kennedy, see, he's on the fence. It depends on who.
Right.
When Kennedy leaves.
People were expecting him to retire, but it hasn't
But I
happened
think the
yet.
next Kennedy is going to be the what's his name, the Supreme Court leader there. I never remember his name.
Roberts?
Roberts. I think he'll be the next Kennedy. He's more on the
He's
fence.
shown evidence of it.
Huh? Yeah, he's more on the fence.
Once, when he called Obamacare a tax.
Yeah, but there's been other cases too where he was more liberal than conservative. I was surprised about one recently, but I can't remember individually. But you know what? They're not even going to get rid of it because it's such a good political issue to stand on when you're running that they don't want it resolved. Most politicians don't really want that resolved because they resolve it, then it goes away. Now
Well,
what do we do?
I,
You know?
as you know, I'm a conservative, and the primary reason I'm a conservative is for a small government.
Good luck.
Okay, especially federal government. Okay, the states can have as much government as they want, but the federal government is what the Constitution limits, and it's way out of control. So usually conservatives or federalists, which are one and the same,
Yeah.
will say, okay, states have certain rights, and then that used to be a conservative issue,
Right.
and now it's becoming a left-wing issue. Yesterday, I watched a report in which Governor Brown of California, a very liberal state, has said California is not going to go along with this, abandoning the Paris Agreement, and we are going to.
Right.
And then also gun control. We're passing a whole bunch of gun control laws. I think he did it by executive order that goes against Supreme Court rulings, and so now California doesn't have to abide by these federal laws or these federal regulations, and sanctuary cities is another example of that. So you have these left-wing groups now saying we're exerting states' rights.
I think it was muddied before.
And we agree. There used to be, okay, you have a federal government ruling about marriage, homosexual marriage, and now all states have to abide by this. Well, they didn't object to that, but if you say, okay, you have a gun, a permit to carry in one state, it's going to be recognized in every state.
Yeah.
Well, they're against that kind of state. So
Yeah, I know,
interesting things
yeah.
are going on here.
It all
But-
depends whose ox is being good.
I guess
that's
it
all.
does.
And with politics, I keep saying I'm saying it on the show since 7, 8 years. I don't know how long it's been. That it's all money. The money in politics is going to kill it. There's so much control by major people, major groups that control everything. I mean, I thought that maybe Trump, one of the thoughts I had where he might be different, maybe better, because he got so much free publicity when he was running. He didn't spend a heck of a lot of money. I think Hillary Clinton probably spent 10 times as much. But he was on TV
about twice as much.
He was on TV every day, free. It was not always putting him in the best light because he looked a little maniacal. But the thing is, he was on, and I thought, well, maybe once he got elected, maybe he'd. But boy, even to me, he's been a bigger disappointment. I can't even imagine what the typical average Republican, not so much the real diehard 33, 34%, whatever he's got on that side, but the real regular Republicans who maybe voted for Reagan, maybe voted for Romney, maybe voted for McCain. What the hell are they thinking right now? I mean, you're looking at, I think McCain purposely had his that operation now so he wouldn't have to be in the Senate when they were running this bill up the flagpole, because it was down to 2 votes. If everybody voted,
Yeah, when those
2
three
votes
women-
wouldn't have killed it, because Spence would have been the deciding vote.
Right.
Why don't you spring this one on me? I don't know what time we started it.
Is China poised to overtake the United States as the world's economic superpower?
Is China? I think you get
Yes.
China.
Is China?
Well, right now, President Trump has said that we could grow it 4.5%, 5% a year in this country. Some other guy with a little bit of sense said maybe 3.5. A Republican conservative economist 3. First quarter of Trump's year, our economy grew by 0.7%. Right, China at the same time grew at about 6.5, which is the halcyon
Which
days.
is slow for them.
Which is
They've been up, they
fantastic.
were up around 10.
Yeah, it's fantastic. They're 6.5, 7, something like that, which is unbelievable. It's our days.
We would
it's
love
our
to
50s.
see
It's our
that,
50s. We
yes.
were actually doing things like building highways and airports. And what people don't realize is what we converted in the 50s and 60s. We were converting 1920s technology in airports and roads and buildings into late 20th century stuff. Now we're here almost 20 years into the 21st century, and we're back where we were in the 50s before we started building. Guys have been telling me what they see when they go to Singapore and different places. Guy showed me a bunch of pictures he took in Kuala Lumpur and places there. He said, that's Kuala Lumpur. I mean, this and China is going to soar ahead of us.
Okay, and why?
Well, they have a state-controlled industry, which is one reason why they can do things.
That isn't what's causing it.
No, I don't know what's
Causing it is capitalism. They've injected a
Yeah,
certain amount of
that's true.
capitalism into their economy, and that is why it is going whoop.
And
all of a
someday,
sudden,
though,
right?
that's gonna.
That's the story.
But someday
it's
that's gonna-
state-controlled capitalism. Yes, it is. It's not as free and easy as it is in many places in the world, but that is what caused it. So they're not going to go back. They're going to keep
Well.
control of it. They're not going to go back. They're going to do more of it, but it'll, as long as they can keep their fingers in it.
try.
As long as they can get Google to cooperate about, having
Yeah.
their own little internet, so there can't be too much political information
Yeah.
going out
But
that they
that'll
don't
end.
want going
that'll
out.
end. That'll end, though. It'll go a long ways, and eventually there'll be what we were, and there'll be something different. But
It's
it'll be what we were.
because free enterprise works. That's what we can learn from the China boom. And we can also learn by watching Venezuela, which had been a free enterprise economy with what some call the world's largest proven oil reserves in the world.
Yeah, under Chavez.
And then all of a sudden they go to Chavez and Maduro and implement socialism. Well, you could call it, it's really communism. I mean, Fidel was over there endorsing them, and the communists in Hollywood were over there talking about what a wonderful guy Chavez was. And then all of a sudden, what's happened? First they run out of toilet paper, now they're running out
That's
of
the
food.
price, yeah.
They don't have, I mean,
Of course, the per barrel price of oil dropped from
but when you
110 to
read this,
42.
when you read it, when you hear about these things, first of all, mainstream media gives Venezuela a good leaving alone, right?
Well, I don't
But
know,
when
I've
they
seen a
do report, like in the riots in the streets, and people are, 100 people have gotten killed now trying to get rid of Maduro.
Who is that? He's
So
not
then
a
you'll
liberal.
see it on CBS.
He's not a liberal.
Oh,
is he?
yeah, he's a socialist. Absolutely. So he took over from Chavez. He was
Yeah, I don't
Chavez's
know. I
guy.
don't follow it.
Yeah. No, of course, and you're not going to read it in the New York
But I
Times
don't
either.
even care
So
about
here's what they'll talk about it, but you won't hear anything about socialism. They won't talk about socialism being the reason why Venezuela is falling on its
It's the
butt.
price of
okay?
oil, man. Come on.
That's
it's
a
the
factor.
biggest export.
That is a factor, but even before, the price of oil plummeted. Okay, they started. The place is a basket case. I mean,
But
It
keep in
is
mind,
socialism. Okay,
South
so the
America-
reason why China is ready to overtake us, it's possible they will. I mean, to answer his question, and the way Venezuela has gone from the most prosperous country in South America to one of the poorest is because of socialism. So I think that it's plain as the nose on your face.
Well, you know, for years and years and years, South America was run by dictators, all tin pot, right-wing dictators.
most of it, not
all right?
Venezuela.
Not Venezuela, no. You had, you know, what's his name, Pinochet and all these other people, Strasner. I mean, these guys used to parade around, he's the president of a country, used to parade around in Nazi uniforms. Half of the Nazis that fled Europe after World War
Went
II
there, yeah.
wound up in Argentina and, you know,
Right.
Bolivia and
Brazil.
Chile. Brazil. I
Yeah.
mean, it's always been this kind of banana plantation down there. I hate to say that about a whole area of the world, but it's been pathetic, the same way Africa was pathetic. You know, it's like they're living in the 18th century, and they have to do things to support what they have. They can't say, oh, all of a sudden, well, we're going to do this. It doesn't work. It won't work here. It won't work in China. China's going to be the next United States. They're on a developmental course.
Here's some statistics, though, about Venezuela. This is a survey that was done by this Catholic University and Simon Bolivar University, a secular. Anyway, they said in 2016, let's see, Venezuelans, 75% of the population lost an average of 19 pounds in 2016.
Yes, they're starving.
They're starving. That's right. 17% of the population is going through
Starvation.
garbage
Yeah.
dumps looking for food. Right. So that solves their toilet paper problem, which is what they ran out of first, because now people don't need as much toilet paper because they're not eating as much, and therefore there's not much coming out the other end. So
Oh, please. Where'd you get that statistic?
I just thought it up while I was talking,
Yeah,
but they did. The first problem they had was a shortage of toilet paper.
I don't want to shoot holes in that toilet paper, but I think you're wrong.
But that's true. And the kids aren't going to school because they're too hungry. They're not going to get any food in school. The schools
yeah.
don't have it. The zoos, there are buzzards flying over the zoos because they can't feed the
Here's the
animals in the
thing. You know
zoos.
what?
So they're about to die, and the buzzards are waiting for them to die so they can go
You
down
and
and
I
have
have
their
lived a
meal.
long time on this planet, okay? You almost can't remember a time when South America operated like a normal place in the world. I mean, it was bizarre.
Venezuela is was the most prosperous country on the continent, and now it's the poorest.
Well, that was the
Okay?
price of oil. What's happening in Russia? Russia's big export is gas and oil. That's it. You know, they're suffering.
They're hurting. That's true.
They're hurting big time.
Yeah,
And
they're
you know
hurting.
what worries me
That's-
about our boy
That
in
is a
Washington?
problem. But the price of oil has been fluctuating for a long time. The price of oil since the 70s, only since the 70s, it's gone crazy when OPEC took over. And Venezuela is a member of OPEC.
Right.
Okay, but when Venezuela, okay,
Can't hold up the
It's
supply.
socialism. That's what it is. I
You
mean,
can't
it's
hold
still
up the
big.
supply. When the American dollar is strong, the price of oil weakens because they're paid in dollars. I mean, it's so obvious what's going on in the world. We're at $40 a barrel for oil. During Bush's
Yeah.
term, George Bush's
True.
term, it was 120, 115, 118 a barrel. So everything was double. You know, they're holding on to that oil so bad that if they ever unlock the pumps and let it out, we'll see $1 a gallon gas again in no time. But
Okay.
anyway, we have.
If we do take over, I would like to point out something else. The reason, I don't know how much time we've
I don't
got left.
either.
We haven't gotten any warnings from
No.
the producer, but another factor in this Obamacare fiasco that we have, in 2009, I guess, is when it passed, and 2010 is when it began to be implemented, as I remember.
He didn't get in until 2010. He was sworn in 2010.
No, 2009, January of
Oh,
2009.
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyway, what we have since Obamacare has been implemented is we have 10 million people or 20 million people who got all of a sudden health care,
There's another
health
20
insurance,
something, yeah.
health insurance that's almost free,
Yes,
okay, with federal subsidies.
that's fair.
So we have another government benefit, and then we have an increase in the belief by Americans that health care is
Is a right.
right,
Yeah.
and not a privilege.
Right.
So health, now they've always had health care, free health care, if they needed it. It wasn't free and the poor had it. So Reagan is the one who said, no emergency room may turn away anybody.
Right.
If somebody shows up there, you have to treat them. And
You didn't tell them how they were going to pay for it, though.
You can't get out of the emergency room if you still have a medical problem. They have to admit you to the ward.
Right.
And give you what you need, right? Now then, how are you going to pay for that? Well, if you're poor, Medicaid pays for it all. If you're not poor, you have some assets, you don't qualify, then you got to liquidate your assets to get to that level where you're poor. So, okay, but then that means you're going to pay as much as you can for your own medical care, and then government pays the rest. The people pay the rest. Well, that hasn't changed, right? But what happened was more people can now get health care the government pays for without liquidating their assets.
Right.
That's essentially what's happened. So they think of it as government is going to give me health care. It's a step toward free, single-payer Medicaid, socialized medicine, call it whatever you want.
Right.
Republicans can't muster enough votes because they were willing to vote time after time to repeal it when Obama was going to veto it, right? So no skin off their nose, right? They were going to get reelected.
71, 50-something time.
Okay, now what's changed? Now they really would.
Exactly.
Trump is ready to sign it. Now all of a sudden they don't have any political courage, do they?
There goes the courage.
What do they have to do? They have to do the same thing that Paul Ryan was doing way back then. They have to say, this is not sustainable. We cannot possibly pay for this. We can tell you we can pay for it and we'll get reelected next year. So how do you solve this problem? How do you get people in Congress that are going to vote for the long-term interests of the United States beyond the next 10 years? You're not going to get it with the system we have now. We need term limits.
Well, I'll tell you what would work.
Get them out.
Part of the problem is even the poorest of the poor making $20,000 a year, whatever the poverty level is for a single
Family of four, it's somewhere up around 50.
Is it 50? Okay. Even those people that are making $1,000 a week on the average, if that's true, they could afford. They could afford to put in 1.5%, 2% of their gross income into Medicare.
They have to. The government takes it out.
See, the numbers you never see.
They don't have a choice.
But they don't. They don't.
No?
They don't
not
pay.
for those people?
All the other people, the husband might be paying into Medicare, but that covers him, right? When those kids grow up, they're not going to have Medicare. They don't get insurance. But if every person, once they got a Social Security card and began working, every person had a certain percentage, just like Social Security, taken out of their pay, and you could raise that as the numbers of people within that group grew over years, you could float that kind of a system. I don't know when it runs out, but you get a situation right now. The baby boomer generation, okay? How many of them? There's, how many? 50 million? Oh. They're going to be gone in 10 years. 15 years, they're gone. We're gone. I don't like to look at it.
Yeah, we're gone.
I don't like to look
sorry,
at it.
folks,
Bye.
but the show will have to be over. You'll have to
I don't like to look at it that way, but they'll all be gone. If you're paying into it now, you'll have something then. But if you don't,
will. Well, we've been paying into it our whole lives, and there's nothing in the Social Security Trust Fund.
Well, that's a little bit disingenuous.
We got only 1 minute left.
Remember the lockbox? Everybody laughed at Gore for his lockbox.
With nothing in it.
Yeah, Gore. They laughed at Gore for that. But
I did too, and I still am.
They're paying it out. They're paying it out on an annual basis.
Oh, I know.
They're paying it in current income.
So it's unsustainable,
Here's
right?
The thing,
As it's currently set up, and we have less than a minute left.
We
so
do?
Yeah,
You've
we do.
got that?
I saw him in the window. He said that.
Was he waving in the window?
Was
that sure?
Yeah, I think it was what finger was up.
Boy.
I'm not sure.
One never knows. So we should plan on another show in 2 weeks?
We should plan on in 2 weeks, and I think we're going to be in
What's
the
the
month
date?
of August. This
What's
is
the
the
date?
19th, so it's 14 days from today, and that's going to be in August, yes.
All right.
Sometime in August. It's been
well,
nice. We have agreed on too many things here, Gino.
We have to get a new president and start disagreeing on anything because you can't keep taking my side. You can't keep admitting I was right all those many years. And folks, you can send all your cards and letters to me, congratulating me for my foresight, my abilities.
Well,
this poor guy, he wanted Pence.
I never liked the guy. I'm miffed that he's not implementing his program because he's getting in the way of his.
I'm miffed that he won't shut up.
That's right. He won't.
Hey, folks, thank
All right.
you all. Thank you all
Been
for
fun.
coming.
See you
We'll
next
see you in a
time.
couple weeks.